Welcome to the Hunter's Campfire. G'day, my name is Mark van den Bogart, hunter, fisherman, writer and storyteller. With me is Ian Hurley, technologist, hunter, hunting mentor and proud father. Together we want to help you get hunting. Our focus is helping you make the most of public land hunting right here in Australia, even if you don't live in a state where it's offered. This podcast series is all about helping you get started, helping you build your knowledge and your confidence so you can get out there and live your own hunting adventures. Now, let's get started.
Right. So remiss of me, Mark, meet Jace,
Hey, Jason.
and vice versa.
Howdy.
Hey, yo.
We've talked about having you
I've,
come on for a little while.
You are our first guest.
I've been lucky enough to get a sneak peek, and I've watched all your previous ones, so I've sort of got a bit of a feel for what's going on anyway. So
I'm just
And-
finishing up the review on this toy too.
Yeah, how's it going?
Thermal handheld.
I've actually not that I've got the money to drop, but I've got a good mate of mine that's got a few more dollars than he needs, and we've been using the Pulsar, I don't know, XP38 or something along those lines, handheld monocular, and that's been pretty interesting. Sure, it's a whole different ball game than flicking the light around, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. So as I said, we were away just on a hunt last weekend, and I took it down a review for Sporting Shooter, and first night I just went out and just like lit up the field and was just going like roo, pig, cow, deer, and it's pretty hard to explain. It's not like you see better; you just see these things. They're just there.
Yeah,
They're just illuminated. They're just there, and you can go, there's a little pig, and there's a piglet there, and then I just spun around and thought, look behind me. There's 3 deer like 40 meters behind me in the dark, just look at me.
Did you get a chance? We've been noticing, like down home here in Stanthorpe, there's in every crop field, every tomato field, capsicum field, there's mice everywhere, and it's so funny. You look through the thermal and you just see 100 little dots all across because you can see all the mice there.
No, we didn't. Where we were, we didn't see that. It's cattle property, but what I did pick up were birds and rocks.
Yeah. The old, you always talk about during the day when you scout and you see the old pig stump and the deer stump.
Yeah.
Now it's with the thermal, it's the pig rock and the deer rock because there's a rock that's absorbed some heat during the day that's still warm.
So the last night we were there, we decided to see if we could take a pig with the shotgun. So we waited and nothing appeared. So we went for a walk, and I could have taken deer at 30 yards with the under over if I wanted to. I was just you're just there. And what we were doing, because it was a handheld, we just had a torch. So you just get real close and then just go clink, tick on the torch and just illuminate them. And so if you were, you could see that if you wanted to shoot at night, you would be highly successful with one of those things. You'd just be wet. And then if you put it on a rifle, you wouldn't even have to move because we were using it as a handheld. If you set a rifle mount up on a tripod or a set of 6 and just stayed there, you just be going bang, bang, shooting all night.
And that's what the fella that I go out with, he's got a night vision scope, so we sort of spot with and it's all like it's farms down here, it's tomato farms, it's vineyards, it's all that. So you basically, the landowner says, if I catch you leaving anything alive, you won't be allowed back. That usual trope. So that it's all in darkness. You spot him with the monocular, you can get in, like you say, really close. He sets up his sticks with his night vision, and you hear a bang, and there's never been a light on. And the only thing is, because I've been doing it for a while with him, is it can get a bit fatiguing. I think we all we've all been there, that experience of going spotlighting, and you sort of shoot things and shoot things and shoot things, and you think, you know what I need? I need a weekend out in the hills walking around with a backpack, because it's just
yeah. Well, that was it. So we were hunting every day. We did one day. We did a big walk and a big walk out. We carried a fair bit of meat out because I got myself a nice buck. And then in the evening, I would just go out just to test it. As I said, I didn't shoot anything with it. I thought if I could see a pig, I'll take a pig with a shotgun, but we didn't shoot anything. But yeah, if you wanted to, you just literally sit there on a camp chair and they just don't know you're there.
No, yeah.
Really
It's
good.
amazing. I was quite stunned by the what it does. It's not like night vision. It's just it now doesn't matter. There is no vision. You're just looking at a different spectrum. You're just looking through a different spectrum. It's not. Yeah, it's just there.
It's funny what you say about it. It's hard to. I've had that problem trying to explain it to mates, and I've said, look, just let me bring it over to your place, and we'll just look in your backyard at your dogs or something. You can't sort of. Yeah, it's.
That's right. It's not like
you just see.
That's right. People think it's kind of like night. No, it's not night vision. It's just like your eyes work now on a different spectrum. So darkness no longer matters because you're not seeing that anymore. You're seeing heat. So if it's hot, you see it.
Yeah.
So you see trees and your rocks and everything. You see everything, but you just see the heat signature in it. And that's what after about 3 nights, I thought you're right. Instead of the pig stump, you kind of go, it's not moving. That's a rock. That's a rock. That's a rock.
Yeah.
The only thing I did want to hit was I bumped a fox. I saw him, and then as soon as I closed the action, he just disappeared. He was gone, and there was cattle around, so I didn't want to be spraying shots. But yeah, fox would have been good. But wow, I was just stunned by it. The only time I would have wanted to see what it would be like during the day, but we didn't get an opportunity, is for blood trails. I know in England that's what we used them for there. We're looking for blood trail. So Tim, we just didn't have that. Tim had to hit a deer and it didn't go down straight away. So I was a bit nervous. So when we stumbled onto these bucks, everything was perfect. So and I got within 80 meters, and I said, I'm necking this guy. There's not a chance we're letting this thing get away. So I necked it. So it was done. That was it. So there wasn't a chance for a blood trail, but I would have liked to see what it's like on blood work.
One interesting one that we've had was I had my mate had sort of set up to shoot a deer. He'd gone for a neck, and he felt it. He said he pulled it up a little bit, and it was a clean miss. And I, same thing. Sort of had the binocular out, had a bit of a look, couldn't see any marks, and then I could just see this spot, and I thought, I'm going to go check out that spot on that tree in case it's blood. And so I walked probably, 60 yards in there, walked up to it, and it was actually the bullet. The bullet had hit the tree trunk, and the heat was causing about a 50-cent piece mark on the. I thought it was blood, but it was actually
a friction mark.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's it. It's heat. So I'd used it during the day, and it was a bush tweaky across the road. And I just filmed it, and but what if you look at a car, and I mean that's what the coppers use them for. That's how they monitor movement. You just look at a car. If the brake rims are running hot, the car's been moving type thing. The wheels are full glowing.
Technology's getting dangerous, fellas.
I was going to. I was actually going to jump on the bandwagon of interesting things, not nearly as interesting as that, but on the I guess the old barn finds or car boot sale finds. I can't remember if I showed you this one, Ian, but I went to a garage sale in Brisbane actually, and there was a lady that said, "Oh, we've got this little set of antlers there. We only want $20 for them because they're little jiggery antlers." And I went over and had a look at them.
Look at
that. And they're little jiggery antlers, but they're hoggies, and they're 15.5 inches.
They're massive hoggies.
this stonking set of, and I said to her, I said, they're actually quite big, and she went, I don't care, just give me my $20 and go away. And I went, oh, righto, so that's in my collection now. Not that I took them, it'd be nice if I did, but I just
an unreal
just the things,
specimen for a hoggy?
Yeah,
the things, and it's mounted on some older wood, and it's a real old sort of mount.
Yeah.
But the things you find at garage sales, eh?
Yeah.
So,
If you show up, you'll find them. So that's a good. We'll call it a good segue into an intro to Jace. So I'll just get you to talk a little bit about yourself, mate, for a sec. That'll put you on the spot. I know you'll love doing that. But obviously, there's a reason for all of this stuff on the wall, other than just hunting it. If you're picking it up from garage sales, and of course, when I met Jace, he was probably more leaning towards we'll go out with the thermal monocular side, and now getting into what hunting's all about. Just to frame it, in case you forget to mention a couple of those things, mate. But take it away, Jace. Give us 5 minutes on your world and hunting and chasing things around.
Well, I until very recently, I suppose, I worked in traffic management and had fun, putting out the stop slow people that everyone hates to stop out at roadworks and stuff like that. But I moved to Stanthorpe when I was 14 and sort of grew up here and went to school, met a lot of farmers, worked in a small engines and agricultural shop, and met every single person in town that way just by working in the spare parts bench. But came to hunting quite late. I guess I sort of resonated with some of the things that had been spoken about in earlier episodes, that I didn't start hunting, till I was in my early 20s, probably 22, 23. I got a gun license, but prior to that, I'd always been outside. Like, if I could run it down and catch it, I would. I'd always loved fishing, catching yabbies, all that sort of stuff, like just being outdoors. But it was actually a mate of mine who's Scottish, who'd grown up pheasant hunting and got his first shotgun when he was 7 years old, and would go out. And he actually said to me, I'm going to get my license over here. And so got my license. For some reason, I guess must have had an innate theory that I didn't want to just go out and shoot stuff for no reason. Ended up going on YouTube and YouTubed how to gut and skin a rabbit, which sort of seems hilarious to learn that on YouTube, considering it's sort of a real rite of passage for most people that learn to hunt with a 22. Went out onto a property. Again, pretty fortunate to have met a lot of landowners from living in this area, and shot a rabbit and gutted it and skinned it and chucked it in the freezer, and thought, well, this works out pretty well. And I was sort of off and running from there. And sort of from then on, I really had a lot of trouble leaving anything. I just couldn't, even if it was pigs, it was always, I'd make 15 phone calls to find someone that wanted the pig, or I'd take the head off, or I'd this or that, and just started a bit of an obsession with using things. And then a bloke that was working for me doing traffic control hunted deer, fallow deer, down around the back of Ballandine, as we got a bit of a population there. And I'd only sort of chase rabbits and the odd pig, and he said, come out with me. And I went out with him, and he shot a deer, and then he's a Kiwi bloke. He proceeded to gut it and carry it out, and we went up, and he showed me how to pull it apart, and I said, well, are they good eating? And he said, my oath, they are. And he sort of got the meat for me. I ate that, realised that the meat was fantastic, and it's another animal that I could eat. And then about a month later, he gave me the tanned skin that he tanned at home. And I tell you what, that blew the doors off in my life. My wife, she probably wants to string him up, because I went from 0 to 1,000 in one foul sweep. When I found out that there was this animal out there that was amazing to hunt, amazing to eat, and you could clean the skulls, you could do a Euro mount, you could tan the skins. I went a bit bananas, to be honest, and I just started every deer that I harvested, I kept the skin. I had about a dozen blokes around Stanthorpe and surrounds that would put them in the freezer for me. I had our local game butcher that harvests game meat, keeping his skins, and that's just what I used to do every weekend was tan skins, and I ended up with, I don't know, I must have had over 100 at one point in this office here, and my wife just said to me, "Look, what are you going to do with all these skins?" And I said, "Oh, I just like looking at them, like most blokes do. I just like, every now and then I flick through them." And so I've got a little online store, an Etsy store, where I sort of sell a few bits and pieces. And at this point, the store, its only function is to allow me to pay for more hunting and more this and that and all the rest. And
Well, give it a shameless plug, Jace.
Yeah,
What's the
mate.
store?
Yeah, tell us what it is.
It's called Wild Bounty Bazaar. If you just Google that, I think I'm the only one that's got a store called Wild Bounty Bazaar, and you can have a bit of a look. And there's different stuff goes up and down and around the place all the time. But I don't market it too hardcore. It's sort of whoever wants to have a look. So that was essentially how I went into really getting into my euros and skulls and taxidermy and skins and things. But from the hunting side, I suppose what Ian was leaning into there was that all of the deer hunting that I'd done was all under light. That was just how it was introduced to me. It was the only property. I didn't have any of my own access in deer country. So the only deer hunting I could do was with a mate, and they went spotlighting. And, it was, for me, as far as I was concerned, as long as every single deer that we shot was going in the freezer. So, that was good enough for me. So that was the thing. I'd only ever spotlighted. And I really, I enjoyed the walking around hunting rabbits during the day with the 22 and stuff like that, probably more. It was, but the amount of meat you get off a rabbit versus a nice full pack of fallow is a bit different. So I actually met Ian at one of the Toowoomba outdoor expos, I believe it was, what they call them, camping and forward drive expo. They do.
Yep.
And Ian was there with the ADA doing R license courses, and I'd sort of convinced one of my mates, like, look, I've heard a bit about this R licensing. I didn't know anyone that did it. Didn't know anyone that hunted the forests, but saw it and thought I'll give that a crack, and did the test and got my R license, and went to a couple of forests near Stanthorpe, the sort of Benue and Boorock here, and it was after there'd been big rains, and it was just a choked up hellhole, and like I walked around and this and I didn't know what I was doing. I'd had no experience on public land. It was all a bit different, and I'd sort of just about given up on it. And then I thought I'll have a look again. And this is, I'm trying to think of how many years ago this would be. I think, how long have we known each other?
It's only 4 years. It wasn't that long.
4 years, 5 years, anything. And decided to go to Severn, which is, pretty close, only 2 hours from home here. And you've already done the podcast about Severn, so you sort of know what it's about. And that was back, everyone likes to think, 4 or 5 years ago was the good old days, is what they say. But I got very lucky. I was just driving around the track in the sort of north portion of the block where all the tracks are, and had a goat run across the track in front of me. And I sort of went, pulled over, quickly put my Blaze Orange on and got my GPS and loaded my gun. And they happened to take me up to the bit that you'll both know. It's sort of in the north middle. There's the big rocky outcrop there and the bit of a plateau.
Yeah.
Yeah. No goats there.
No goats there.
No, it's all been shot out. Is the joke we like to make. And followed them up. They led me to a mob, and I took 2 animals, and then dragged them down out of the hill and strung them up in a tree and butchered them. And that was sort of my intro into being successful in a state forest. And that after that, it was just public land. Like since then, I've been very fortunate that I've stumbled into some deer hunting blocks that I can hunt during the day, and I've managed to hunt the last 2 years in the rut and been able to chase some croak and stags, which has been pretty phenomenal. But there's something about that public land, I don't know whether it's because it's an open playing field. There's none of this nonsense about, oh, you only get that because you got access or this or that. It's anyone can hunt it, and you got to hunt hard. And when you get something, I don't know, it's something. There's something more satisfying. And I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Harvesting animals on public land, your land that you pay for, knowing that any person can go out there and give it a crack themselves. There's something magical about that, and that's sort of that's where I'm at now. I do a fair bit on private land here that I have access to, but geez, what I really look forward to is those R license hunts. That's for sure.
And you're talking about midwinter, heading to Nundle next weekend. You're talking about snow forecasts, minus temperatures, and you're raring to go, right?
Yep. Got booked in at Hanging Rock, and then had another one of our members in the Darling Downs ADA say, look, just book Nundle as well. You'll find that, you're there. You might as well go and have a look around through all of it. I've only ever been to Nundle once, and that was with Ian. I wasn't hunting. I just sort of went for the experience, just to tag along and have a bit of a look. So this will be my first, to be honest, not that it isn't obvious enough by now, I spend all my time at Severn because I don't have to go anywhere else because there's plenty of animals in there, as much as people like to say there isn't. But yes, this will be my first sort of big excursion hunting down there, and yeah, I can't wait. I hope I freeze my butt off. I hope it snows. I hope it's awful, and I hope there's deer around it. And you know what? I'm fairly confident there is, because again, the people you talk to that hunt hard and hunt properly just have no dramas. So.
That's fantastic. It's funny listening to you, because there's so much about what you were saying about the fact, like I've got private land access. I've just been from a private block. I've got a local private block, 90 minutes from home here, which, puts me in a very rare air living in Brisbane. But you go to public land and, it's like all bets are off. It's just you. That's it. GPS marks, stories about this, doesn't matter. You just got to get there and get into it and just start early, finish late. Just keep going and it will produce. And sometimes it produces within, the first 30 seconds, and sometimes it takes 3 days. But when you're onto them, it's a very, very different type of feeling. It's just, I don't know what it is. I think it's simply, as you said, it's the fact that it's completely open. There isn't any kind of advantage you can have over anyone else other than the fact of what you've got. The only advantage you've got is what you put into it and how straight you shoot when it comes down to it. That's your only advantage, And I think that is what's so challenging and so rewarding about public land hunting. What about you, Em?
Oh, look, I agree, but I'm really interested in. Look, I sort of know the answers because I've been in and around what you've been doing over the last few years. But you talked about a minute ago, you came down to Nundle. You went down to Nundle once, and you came down with the branch. I don't remember the reason why you weren't hunting, but later on, I want to talk to you about new hunters in new parks and your experience with taking new people in and blooding them, for the want of a term, in public land hunting. So just talk to me a sec about, so why did you go to Nundle unarmed, if that's the way we want to put it, and how was that experience? What were you trying to get out of it other than being sort of lead hunting?
From memory, I think it was. I can't even remember if it was that it was booked. It might not have even booked out. My instinct is to say that it was booked solid, but I can't even say that was it. I think it was just, I knew that there was enough of us down there that were hunting, and I think we all get to that point where just being along with a hunt, with other people is fun in itself. You don't always feel like pulling the trigger. Some of some of the best times I've had on public land is when I'm with someone else that's hunting, because you know what, I don't have to carry a rifle and I can jump around and I can use my binos all the time and there's no pressure. So I think that might have been an element of it. I thought I'll come down with some blokes from the branch that are familiar with this area. I'll just tag along. It'll be a good experience. You know, who doesn't love a drive in the country down that way? And it was great. Got to we camped in Ponderosa there, which again was all new to me. Lovely spot there. Froze my butt off in my rooftop tent, thinking, oh yeah, it won't be that cold, and it blew around like I was in the crow's nest of a ship. And then yeah, just tagging along for the hunt. I sort of went with yourself, that Ian and some of the other fellas split off, and we found sign, and they'd been around, and you could tell that if you just stayed there for a bit longer and put a bit more effort in, you'd run into them, no worries. I know at the time you were particularly focused on training your dog for tracking and stuff like that. But yeah, it was great experience, great to see. And as always, when you're back at the camp and everyone's, I brought along a red deer backstrap, and Trev brought a fallow shoulder, and some other people brought some stuff. And it's a place that it's probably the only thing that I can equate to the American deer camp that I've experienced down there. It's really a real relaxed, a place you can really come back, be yourself, and enjoy deer camp. And you don't leave that headspace. Sometimes when you hunt during the day, you come home, you have tea, you go to bed, you go out and hunt. You sort of snap out and into it. Whereas I felt like down at Nundle, that's what you were there for, and everyone was there, and you didn't have any other responsibilities. And so yeah, I found it to be a great experience, and I can't wait to go back there next weekend and have a crack at actually paying attention.
No, it's well summed.
So, as you know, the purpose of the purpose when we started this podcast anyway was to help people get started. So, if we were to ask you to, and now that you're an old hand at Severn, if we were to kind of go back in the Wayback Machine, what was your first experiences of Severn, and what would you tell your first self now that you might, if you were to give yourself some, a bit of guidance? What was your first experience with Severn?
Well, I got really lucky. I know that obviously I've experienced, and then people that have hunted our license a long time before me have experienced really high numbers of animals in that forest where you're almost tripping over them, and it's definitely backed off. The numbers are down after the prices and stuff went up. But like I said, I got lucky that I had a goat run across in front of me. But just what the advice I'd probably give myself is look around. Like I got this stuck in my head for a while that this is where I'd seen the goats. That's where they're going to be. I'm not going anywhere else. I'm not exploring anywhere else. And don't get me wrong, it more often than not, it worked out for me because they were there a lot of the time. But since then, now I'd like to think that I've just about covered everywhere in that forest. Like you would know yourselves that you spend a bit of time in there, you can cover it, although it's it's not the biggest park. And yeah, just learning the ground a bit better. I think learning the tracks, learning the ground, learning the sign is something that I've appreciated much more now, rather than I'm just going to go up here because that's where I think the goats are, sort of thing. I think that'd be the advice I'd give myself, is just get a bit better at your hunting skills. Don't just rely on spotting the white patch in the bushes, sort of thing, basically.
Okay, because that it is true. I mean, look, I hunted Severn. First time I hunted Severn was in 2010. And it had only been open for a couple of years, and there was still, I think there was still sign of it once held quite a large sheep population, I believe, and there was still the sign that some of the sheep are around. And it was, there was, but there was lots of game there. But I must admit, I've never really been to Severn when there isn't lots of game. I know, there's plenty of stories that it's got no game. I've never really found a time when it hasn't got game. I've certainly found times when it's lesser or they're harder to locate. There was a period of time when it was very, very dry that, it was almost bare, but everywhere was bare then. But I myself haven't ever found it, bereft of game. There's always been something there. And I when people tell me, they say, "Oh, I don't go to Severn because there's nothing there. It's been shot out and things like that." I often wonder what experiences and what approach are they using to come to that conclusion. And I think you're right. Far too many people, when I talk to people about Severn, they kind of go, they're almost like the old fishing, give me the GPS mark of the reef, It's like, where's the bommy that the fish are held up on? And obviously, game do congregate in certain areas, and that rock formation is it's notorious for goats because it's a perfect location for goats. It's a rock formation. It's high. They've got great cover. There's a stream down below. It's got good pick. So you're going to get animals there. But often, people kind of are looking for that answer about where the animal is or what gully they're in. And I've always found with public land hunting, you just got to find those things, and that it doesn't replicate itself. So much so where I've seen that the most is with the pilliga. The pilliga is never the same hunt twice. It's actually quite interesting in that way because it has such significant seasonal changes. It just doesn't, replicate itself. You'll go down there and you'll see wildflowers that you won't see any other time of the year. You'll go there and you'll see a congregation of birds that you don't see other times, and the next time will be a congregation, but it'll be different birds. And that's what you really get quite interesting. And sometimes the goats are holding up in this kind of way, other times they're holding up in a different type of way. I remember once we went there and it was summer and all the goats were holding up in the sand country in the shade. So they were going into the sand country, getting in the shade and just holding up. Other times, there's not a sign of them. They're not there. They've moved on. So that idea about looking for game and being on your toes and saying, okay, I know what I did last time, but that might not replicate this time is a really important factor, I think, for public land success. Because you get people go, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to Nundle. I'm going to go here. And I kind of go, okay, just what are you going to do if they're not there waiting for you?
I think I've because having it been sort of fairly close, I've been there. I go there quite a bit, sort of thing. And over the last probably 2 years, it's definitely been a decline. Not as much. We always make the joke. Oh, there's nothing there. It's shot out, and then you have a bit of a laugh and you say, no, it's ridiculous. But certainly a decline in numbers is what I've seen. But even on the handful of times that I've been where I haven't taken animals, I have heard them, and let's say I've heard them and they end up being on private. We've seen them on the ridges on the far end of the exclusion zone sort of thing. Like there's been times we haven't taken animals, but they've always been there. And that's the advice that I've always given everyone is just go and look. And you know what? If you've been walking around for 5 hours and you haven't seen anything, you might see them in the next 10 minutes. It's just sort of that thing I've found with public land is that you keep going and you keep going and you get to the point where you're going to give up. And you know what? Go for another 15 minutes because they just, when you least expect it, you better be ready because they come out of nowhere, So
yeah, it is like that, isn't it? It's hours of, I always think your hunting is actually about 30 seconds at the most. Everything is prepped to that 30 seconds. I hunted a red deer block in up at Kilcoy, and for 3 months I hunted that block. But really, I hunted that block for about a minute and a half. The rest was just getting ready for that minute and a half, and that's what you get certainly with public land hunting. And I haven't hunted Severn for a while, but I hunted it I've probably hunted Severn around 20 to 30 times over the years, and because it's only a 4-hour drive, so I would literally. I've actually hunted it in a day. I remember once with a Echo Wednesday. I left at 3 a.m., got down there, hunted it for the day, and drove home, and did it all in a day. So it's a great.
I did the same thing. Did exactly the same thing. Drove down there, expecting to backpack hunt. I don't know why. I think I had this idea of backpack hunting was a great idea, but there's no point in Severn because you just hit the next road, and you might as well have just driven there. But I was going to do this, and I had my pack on, and I walked up our favourite spot, and knocked over 2 animals in about 10 minutes of being there, and then realised I forgot my esky. So the whole lot had to go into the back of the car so I could get back home again and make sure it went on ice. So I was there for a grand total of 30 minutes, and I was out. I was finished. So it was. It is like that. It's quite interesting. But so the other day you spoke to me, Jace, about the experience of a new hunter into Severn, and this is not Severn specific, but it's certainly the experience of a new hunter. I've taken a load of new people into various different places, but it was a particularly good story that you told about the experience that you managed to make this guy go through. So it might be worth talking about that. With a particular theme, actually, you might give up the story for old mate when he listens, but it's probably more about the challenge, isn't it, really? And maybe the respect you need to give to public land. If you're going to get into it, it's not a walk in the park all day, right?
Yeah, it's it's funny. I called him and I said, "There's a chance I'm going to talk about your little introduction to public land hunting." And he said, "Don't make me sound too hopeless." And I said, "No worries, mate. That's all right." But yeah, I've got a mate that I met through another mate, and look, and I I don't consider myself to have any qualifications, I suppose, to be taking anyone out. I always think that I'm definitely no bow hunter. I'm too loud. I don't track very well. I think the reason I have success is because I'm just hard-headed, and I don't tend to give up easy with stuff. And so I generally my plan for public land hunting is I just keep walking until I find something. And if I don't find something, I just keep walking, and that's been my success. And inevitably, I like to think I've picked up some skills along the way. But yes, I'm no expert hunter by any means. I think I'm a bit thick, and I just keep going. But anyway, it's a friend of a friend's. He's up in Brisbane. Known him for many years. He's had guns, done a bit of hunting, but I guess. Not to I'm not saying anything's a bad experience or anything like that, but he had not done any of the hunting that we would consider, like hunting and taking the meat and sort of having that respect for the animal. A lot of pest destruction, let's say, going out, blowing stuff away, taking a couple of photos, and that's always needed on properties and farms, and farmers need that, and that's that sort of stuff. But I was impressed that sort of his own natural instincts, he'd sort of become dissatisfied with that, and was reaching out to me. He'd known that we do a lot of deer hunting and eating the meat, tanning the skins, and he wanted to get into that. He wanted to be a part of the process from start to finish, and that went a long way with me. Just the fact that he wanted to respect the animal and get it done properly. And I thought, what, I'll because I feel like there is a bit of everyone has a bit of a knee-jerk reaction when someone says, "Oh, you take me out hunting," and you go, "Oh, no, there's the whole gun safety, and there's this, and there's that, and there's all these things you like to build up in your head about how you're not going to enjoy the experience." But I thought, what, we'll give it a crack. And I actually invited him out, told him to bring his 22 out, and we went out for a night of rabbit hunting, because he'd never gutted anything, never butchered anything. And I thought, well, if we go out rabbit hunting, I'll get an idea of his firearm safety, how he handles a weapon, how he acts, all those sort of things. And by the end of the night, he ticked all the boxes. He was super safe. He was so aware of his muzzle. He never wandered around in the chamber while we were moving. Shot well. He'd never gutted anything, so I showed him how to do the rabbit, which made me laugh about me all those years before YouTubing it on a video. And he had a crack, did it all. And one of the things that really impressed me was we'd shot probably 10 rabbits, and he sort of said to me, I'm done. And he'd had enough of killing for the night. And I thought, oh, that's a good thing, being able to have that sort of restraint, that he wasn't just there to yeehaw and just blow holes and things. So that was his introduction to me. And I thought, well, I'm going to give this guy a go, because he seems like he's someone that can be pushed in the right direction. Had, like a lot of people I hear about, he'd had his R license for a long time and never used it. And it was because he'd always been waiting for friends to go with, and everyone had been busy and couldn't go, and didn't want to step out. I suppose it can be quite a daunting thing, going out there if you haven't done it yourself, worried about getting stuck, all those things that you guys have talked about on previous podcasts, dehydration, getting into bad situations. It's great to go with someone that's been there before. So I just said to him, look, I'll take you down to Severn and we'll go for a walk around, and I'm fairly confident you'll get onto animals. I don't know if you'll, freeze up or shoot them or you won't or this or that, but I'm fairly confident you'll get onto them. Which was that. So that was the plan. I will admit to a bit of a malicious sort of plan. I wasn't just going to take him to spot X and pull up and walk up the hill and have a bit of a look around. I thought, you know what? Not that I'm an old timer by any means, but I thought, we're going to make him work for this, because if he goes out here and it takes him 10 minutes and he shoots a goat, he's just not going to get what public land hunting is all about. And so I'd sort of devised a track, or where we were going to walk. And you never know, like, we could have got out the car and they could have walked out in front of us, could have been, 5 minutes and it was done. But I sort of thought this will be a good hike in. We'll get down there. I've got a spot that I've got marked on my GPS that's down in the Never Never. We'll see what we can do. But I wanted him to experience walking in himself and sort of realizing what he needed to do. Where I decided to go, because you guys will know what I'm talking about, on the southern side of Mount Hallam Road, sort of when you drive in, you hit the grid there, and sort of immediately you drive up a bit, and immediately to your left is sort of that southern boundary fence that runs on the Cockies land there, and goes all the way to basically, I guess you would call the southeastern corner, I guess, on the southern block, when you split it up into the top block and the bottom block. And I had you basically, if you walk all the way down that fence line and then around the jag and all the way down pretty much to the very bottom corner of that block, and then you cut in to head back up to the middle, there's a ridge through there. There's a bit of a rocky ridge through there, like we keep saying, look for rocks and ridges and look up, and they're probably there. So
Creek beds.
I thought, that's the plan. We're going to get down there. I thought I had overemphasized water, clothes, long clothes, snacks, be ready, assume you're going to be out all day. In hindsight, I probably could have really cranked down on that a bit harder. But anyway, we get out and we've got the same amount of water. I think I had 6 litres and he might have had 6 litres too. So a lot of water, considering, you're only going to be walking for a few hours sort of thing, I guess. And now this bloke, my mate, I think he's 6'8" or 6'9". Like, he's this monster of a fella. Big fella, lovely bloke, but, has, gets a bit of a sore back and things like that, as tall blokes do, but strapped his backpack on and off we went. We got about 200 metres from the car and he's going, oh. And I looked over, and for anyone that's been to Severn in the last 12 months, and particularly on that southern block, there is a sea of cobblers' pegs and farmers' friends, and it is a nightmare. And the local cockies have sort of said it's that drought flood that makes them really bloom down there. But it is horrendous. Like, if you were down there in shorts, you just turn around and go back. And so I've turned around and had a look at him. I didn't realise he's wearing like the mossy oak sort of camo. They're a net mesh, very breathable summer. Yeah. Because he's thinking I'm going to overheat. I'm going to wear these. And yeah, he's walked about 500 meters, and he is a human echidna. His legs are just completely covered, and it's not like when you get them on your jeans and you can't feel them. He is feeling every single one of these spines because it's only mesh. Yeah. They're going straight into his leg. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, but he was determined. He said, no, it's all right. We'll keep going. And I don't think I sort of really processed what he was going through, because the entire hunt, he was just in pain the whole time. Anyway, we walked because a few years ago they actually put in a new fence line on that one, and they actually cleared the trees down there. So it's a bit of an easier walk. It gets to spots where it's chest high grass there, but it's not going through the jungle sort of thing. It's a bit easier. So we walk down, and we're sort of periodically stopping, checking. Like, I've just got my chest bino rig, looking, and just sort of trying to show him that it's not like private land where, they're always in the back corner of that, but they can pop up anywhere. You got to be on the ball at all times. So that's the plan. Again, I didn't bring a gun, so I was having a great day. No pressure, no nothing, because he's got to carry his gun. And so we went down, and I think that walk all the way down, I think I measured it, or we GPSed it. I think it's might be 3.5K or something like that down there. I'm only guesstimating, but all down there. So let's say 3.5. So we get all the way down, and we're doing the usual stop, slow, pull up for a drink, stop, slow, have a listen. Hadn't seen anything yet. And again, every time he stops, I'm sitting down. He's not sitting down because he can't, because he's got too many copper sticks in his pants. So we get down.
Did you get a photo of that?
I don't think I do. I've got a bad enough one from when I went last time. My pants were real bad, but got down there, and he's already saying how much more enjoyable this is. You're outside, you're in the day, you're day hunting. Just like we were saying, you can't explain it. It's this sort of sense of adventure that you get on public land. And I guess for him, especially being his first time there, he's having a great time. Get all the way down to where we want to be, and we cut back up.
Yeah.
And it is thick. It is thick as thick. It's a hellhole. It's tangled, and we're just slogging through, trying to be quiet. Slog through, climb up one of the ridges. Again, stop for a drink. I have a laugh because he's not sitting down. Go through, and I was sort of thinking to myself, there's no tracks through the grass. It's all green grass, very easily pressed down. There's no tracks through the grass. There's no fresh sign. There's nothing here. We're not hearing goats. And I sort of started to get a little bit pessimistic to myself. I sort of didn't say it to him, but I just thought, and I've got on my GPS, goat sign on my GPS here. And I thought, all right, so we'll push over. Pushed up, over, coming down. And we came up over the ridge, and it started to get a bit more sandy, that sort of telltale goat country, sandy, rocky. And I looked down, and there was some fresher droppings, not hours, but days old. And I said, look, we better just be on here, and we'll just, because that's the freshest sign we've seen. And I always have faith in Severn that it's going to produce. We didn't walk 100 meters across that ridge line. And earlier, it was funny, about an hour earlier, I'd said to him, if we bump goats, I said, the first thing you're going to hear, mate, is pff, you're just going to hear that sound that they do. They spit when they smell you or they spot you. I said, if you hear that, we need to move quick, because that means we're busted. We'll try and sort of see. Anyway, we walk 100 meters, and of course we hear this nanny blow. She goes, pff, and it's like, yep, they're here somewhere. We're on a ridge. They're down in the valley, but the valley is so thick and so choked. There was 8 goats down there, and we couldn't see one of them. And so we're walking across the ridge, and we'd get blown again, and we'd walk back around the ridge, and we'd get blown again, and we'd walk back. And I guess the saving grace was they couldn't see us either. It was so thick down there that they couldn't see us. They'd obviously winded us. And I just said to him, look, let's just go make a plan. If we bust them out of this bowl, they're going to come up on one of the ridges somewhere, and we can sort of follow them up there. Went down and had said to him, be ready, but had not explained be ready means these things are going to appear, they're going to materialize in front of us. You need to be ready. And so sure enough, walk 50 metres into this scrub, and there's a goat standing broadside. And he shot, and he shot over the back of the first one. I think just, that you get that stag fever, and I essentially, and he thanked me for it afterwards. I took over his brain. I said, "You've missed, reload again." He's reload. I said, "Yep, hit that one." He's gone bang, hit that one. Another one's busted to the right. I've said, "Right, to the right, 2 o'clock." That one again, he's hit that. A billy's come around the side. I've said, "Turn, load again," because I could just tell that it was very overwhelming at the time. He'd never seen a goat in the wild, let alone hunted one. So this is all happening very fast. Anyway, bang, bang, bang. Got these goats down, and there's a couple more coming up the ridge, and he sort of loaded again, and I just went, "Whoa, stop." I said, "We're the best part of 4Ks in here." I said, "Just
I ain't
stop."
leaving shit lying on the ground.
And like Ian knows, everyone that hunts with me knows that I really struggle to leave anything behind. I've got mates with dogs. I've got mates that are taxidermists that appreciate even the smallest little nanny skull. They'll clean it up and sell it themselves. And I really try and retrieve everything I can. So once we sort of calmed down and the nerves had stopped, and we saw the other goats walk up and over the edge of the bowl, and I'd shaken his hand, and we went and had a look and pulled them all together, and he just the same thing we all talk about, that adrenaline dump, that minute and a half of action that you have for the hours of hunting. It had all sort of come together, and I think he was still sort of in shock, which was just great. And for me, a great feeling to have put a game plan together and had it work. I said to him, I said, this isn't right. I said, "You're not supposed to shoot one on your first go." I said, "I was supposed to lead you down the track where there was no goats," but it was good. At that point, again, he's never gutted anything bigger than a rabbit, so that's a whole new visceral experience, getting your hands dirty. And so I did the first one, showed him how to do the next one, and then he sort of went with his billy and had a bit of a go, and yeah, it was a real learning experience for him. But it's funny, I think Ian mentioned a couple of podcasts before, he really wanted to bring home a goat skin. He wanted to tan one. These goats were like nothing I had ever seen before. We walked up on this billy goat, and my mate said, "Isn't that a lovely black and white billy goat?" And we got closer, and it was just a pure white billy goat, but it was matted. It was matted like nothing else. Like you could almost knock on it like a piece of hardwood. There was this shield on these goats. They were just full, and he was a bit devastated that you would have never been able to do anything with the skins. He was a bit devastated he couldn't bring them back, but we brought back the billy, which was good. But anyway, so gut those out. And I've been, as you do, having my water, and my general rule is once I get close to half, I'm turning around. That's sort of my idea with my water. That's just me. Once I get close to half, I'm going to turn around and start hunting back towards camp, because I have put myself, even in Severn, being as small as it is, I have put myself in bad situations in that park, where I've run off after something and left my bag behind, and then been climbing up a mountain and getting a bit woozy because I'm not having my water with me. So anyway, we're there. I'm having a bit of a drink, and we finished gutting out these goats, and I've got one strung up, and I'm quartering it out so that we can chuck it in the game bags and pack it out. And my mate says to me, "Onto me last bottle of water." And I've still got half of mine. And I went, "What?" And he went, "Yeah." And he's sort of cleaning off his hands and having a bit of a drink. And he's warm. Like I can tell he's, I guess you get a bit situated to it, and you get a bit hunting fit when you do it a bit. And this is his first time, and he's knackered after all that and dragging the goats and being, as I said, his 6'8" frame bent over in half, gutting out these goats. He's really dusted at that point. And I thought, we've still got 4Ks, and it's uphill once you start going out the other way. It might not be tough trekking up that fence line, but it's uphill. And so I thought, all right, let's move quick. And I just started just taking quarters off and back straps out without skinning the goat. So it's like, yep, just take it all off, stick it in the meat bag, stick it in our backpacks. Then I realised, you know, I've got a 20-litre Ridgeline backpack, which I've now upgraded to a 35-litre one with a proper frame in it. So I've sort of packed mine up as much as I can. I've zip tied all the meat bags to the outside, looked at his bag, and he's brought he works for Cat. He's brought a black Cat laptop bag. It's about this big. And so I couldn't really put any
6 litres of water.
Oh, well, that's I don't know. He sort of packed it all in there. So I ended up having to actually. I always carry paracord with me so that I can string an animal up and butcher it hanging in the tree because I don't want to hurt my back. And I've ended up tying 4/4 of a billy goat, a good sized billy goat, and the back straps onto this little backpack on him, and he's sort of slogged it on and put it up and stood up, and it's just everything that you don't want with an unbalanced pack. You know, you every time you step to the left, it's swinging to the left, and every time to the right. And we've thought, all right, let's get out of here because it's going to start getting dark. So I suppose, you know, to cut a bit off the story, we climb up, climb out, going up, and my mate's feeling it. And I've got a bad habit, like I said, I'm pretty hard-headed, is once I'm on a mission, like especially once you've already harvested the game, I just go and I don't stop, and I ignore the pains in the legs and I ignore all that. And that's how I sort of get myself in trouble sometimes. But I'm motoring off, and then I'd stop and realise my mate's, you know, 400 or 500 metres behind me. I think, oh, what am I doing? I go back and I said to him, just yell out if you're having a hard time, and I'll give you a hand. And so he's sort of coming up, and we're going and we're stopping, having a drink, stopping and having a drink. And I just said to him, I said, look, you're not going to die here. I got plenty of water. You can have my water. The car's literally 3 Ks up the road. Worst case scenario, I will hike up to the car, get some water and hike back. We'll camp here. Don't stress. Like, don't think that this is a dire situation. You know, it's okay. So he pushed on, and I'll give him credit. This whole time, fun fact that he won't like me mentioning, the cobbler's pegs in his pants were giving him so much trouble when he was trying to gut the goats. He said to me, oh, you know, if it wasn't for you here, I'd just take my trousers off. And I said, mate, like, I said, just do it. Like, I'm not going to, what do you think, I'm going to ban you from the hunting, you know, community for doing that? And so he'll have a laugh about this when he hears it. So he's there sweating it out, this big giant man in his underwear doing his best. His first time he's ever processed a large animal, and to his credit, he stuck with it anyway. And then he couldn't walk out in his undies because the grass was too long, so he had to put those horrible cobbler's pegs pants back on.
I can imagine it.
And that's, you just start adding layer onto layer onto layer of this poor bloke's experience.
He'll never forget this. He'll never forget this.
And we got where we were probably only 1.5 km, just had to walk up the hill on that fence line to get up to where the grid is, to where the car was. And we're going, and I'm walking, and I hear, oh, and I turn around, and my mate's on the ground, and I can just see him rolling, going, oh, no. And I've yelled out, you're right, mate? Oh, yeah, I'm all right. And it turned out, he told me afterwards what had happened. He twisted his ankle on a rock, hit the ground, and as soon as he'd hit his ground, he'd got a leg cramp in both legs at the same time. And so the boy is rolling around on the ground. I go down, we get up, we get all the way back to the car, we drop the packs, and I make a point of just saying to him, mate, you've really impressed me today, and shook his hand, and, you know, just the look on his face and the satisfaction. And he just said, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. The hardest thing physically, sort of mentally, is the hardest thing I've done. And when we were driving in, sorry to keep going off on a tangent, when we'd been driving in, it sort of said to me, I'm really looking forward to when I know this forest, because I'm going to bring such and such with me, my mate. And I thought, oh yeah, because I know the bloke, and yeah, righto. And and I might do some day hunts by myself. I'll just go by myself, and it'll be really good. And at the end of it, he said to me, I'm not doing this stuff by myself. That's ridiculous. And he said, my mate I was going to bring, he's never going to make that. And I just said to him, I said, do you know why you got goats today? And he said, why? I said, how far did you go in there? He said, well, I don't know. I think it ended up being 9 Ks we tracked right by the time we got back to the car. I said, how many people, after walking 100 metres and then getting pants full of cobbler's pegs, keep going? No one. Everyone just goes, no, the south side's knackered. Don't go down there. It's horrible. I said, then you got down there. Then you found the goats. You shot them. You didn't just take a photo with them and leave, which, no discredit to anyone that does that. You're doing your legal hunting. I don't mind. That's fine. But you made the point of butchering them and bringing the meat back. You've just about killed yourself coming back, but you never gave up, and you're back here. And I said, this is how you win at public land hunting. I said, you want to know the cheat code for public land hunting? Do this. Just push and push and push and keep going and don't give up. And he, since then, our plan, we were going to stay there the night. We were going to camp. And my house is only 2 hours from Severn. I said, hey, mate, how about we just go home and have a shower? And he went, yeah, mate, that's fine. And so ended up being a day hunt. And yeah, just everything that I have experienced, he, sort of told me that that's how he was feeling. Just the satisfaction. The next day we got all the meat out, we butchered it all up, boned it out, cryovacked it, and he took all that meat home, to make curries. He took the shanks to do shanks, and just, he sort of has said to me the same thing I guess we all get to, is that closing the circle of where your meat comes from, and the hunt, and remembering the hunt, and the fact that it was so hard and it just kicked the crap out of him. He just said it was the best introduction to public land hunting he could have had. And so that's, for me, that's the satisfaction. It was better than me going hunting and getting something myself. It was just great. But I do have a little bit of a smile, and I think about, we probably could have just driven up around the track and shot one, and it would have been 10 metres from the track and just loaded in the car. But you know what? You wouldn't have had as much fun. And because he's forgetful, I have actually got his billy goat Euro here. So this is, and again, not, people talk about 30s and 40s and 50s and stuff like that, but that was his first ever large game animal, first ever goats seen in the wild, and first goats taken, and a cracking little trophy that he can keep on his wall. And he said to me that, this little billy goat means the world to him as a trophy for public land. So I really like that story. Ian knows that I'm not very forwards with being in the spotlight and things like that, but he that's a good story. I think it's a great example of what, if you're willing to put the hard yards in, just the experiences you can have, and just not giving up. So, and he burnt the pants. He didn't even try and fix it.
It's a great summation of public land hunting. And like we talked about Severn, like you said, we've talked about it in another episode, and we talked about it being this small park, and you can cover a lot of it, in a weekend quite easily. But what time of year were you in there? It wasn't that long ago, but it must have been in autumn.
Yeah, probably a month or two ago. Yeah, so
it was still cooler weather. You're still knocking back the water. Without a bit of experience, old mate was in a bit of trouble. So, even though it's a smaller park, you've got to take it seriously. It's not all easy, and you've got to be prepared for this stuff, right?
Yeah, that's. Oh, sorry, that's what I said. That was one of his takeaways, was that he just thought even though I had warned him, he said he couldn't comprehend what it really meant. You had to sort of to be there to know. So yeah.
That's right. I mean, Severn, whilst it is small, it's wild country though. It's just smaller. It's a smaller parcel of wild country, and especially that southern block. That's wild country. There is vehicle tracks in there. You will run into them, but for the most time, you are not following a track. You might be following a game trail, but you're not following a track. It's not like that. And that's one of the interesting things when you talk to people who do things like bushwalking or hiking. Often in those situations, you're traveling along fairly well-traveled paths. What we're doing is the opposite. We're actually going, no, we want to move away from the well-traveled path. We want to go into the hard stuff because that's where the game's going to be. So yeah, small block, yes, but certainly that southern block is a tough block as well. I've been in there a couple of times where it's got. Well, I was in there once specifically with someone, and we got in a bit of trouble with that person. And like you said, in the end, I had to get out, go back, get a vehicle, and come back and pick up the other two guys. And and I said to them, look, you just head directly this direction, just keep walking in an hour. You will hit the road, line of sight. Well, I went back out and got a vehicle because it can get a bit tricky down there. And water is, you burn through water when I don't know if it's because I thought about this a lot about why you seem to burn through a lot of water when you're hunting, and I wonder if it's because your brain is on. You're actually, because when you're walking, unless you're really, really observant, you're not in a daze, but you're not in a really high state of engagement. When you're hunting, especially if you're hunting properly, you're engaged all the way. You're on all the time. So, you're always thinking, looking, guessing, trying to figure out what this particular sign means. And I wonder if that's actually one of the reasons why you seem to chew up so much water, because you're actually just burning through so much calories.
I've always found when you're hunting, when you're bushwalking or doing anything, you stop for a drink. When you hunt, you stop every few steps. So I think it's natural for you just to go, I'll have a sip. And we talked earlier about, in our gear episode, we talked about the camelbacks. And I had not even considered it until I was talking to another one of the members who said, I don't do that anymore. I carry a drink, I have a purposeful break and have a drink of water, and I can see what's left. Your camelback can run out before you know it.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing. And I find myself doing it. Walk, stop, glass, sip, go, sip. You're always sipping on that little straw that's hanging over your shoulder. So it's a good point to make, because you can get in trouble.
I think the big takeaway for me, what I didn't realise was I was focused on my water because we had the same amount of water. The assumption was that we were both right, and I probably, that's what I didn't realise. He's such a bigger bloke than me, and he was newer to it. I just didn't realise he was going through his water quicker than I was, and that's something that I'll remember now with taking a new hunter, is don't assume that they're on the same water schedule as you. Like, I'll really go out of my way to check their water levels too, because that I felt like that was a bit of a mistake. That I never felt like it was something that was going to put his life in danger. I could always hike out that, but it was something that I picked up, that different people just require different amounts of water, and just making sure that everyone's got what they need for themselves, I suppose. So
yeah, I reckon Mark will agree when I say this. When you said 6 litres each, in the back of my mind I went, holy shit, that's a lot of water. There's no way in hell I would have carried 6 litres of water down there. I'd be lucky to carry 3, but yeah, you're right. He wasn't match fit for what he was getting into, and just burnt through it. Just wasn't used to it.
Yeah, I run a camelback, and I think it's a 3-litre camelback. I think so. I'm just trying to think now. I'm pretty lean on water usage. I just think, just through practice, I tend to be pretty lean on it. I actually think at times I might be a little too lean. This a couple of times I felt a little dehydrated, especially in summertime. I wonder if I should probably try and suck some, drink more. So I've never ran out of water. I've never run out of food or water, but I've certainly been with people who have, and we've gone, okay, we've got to figure out what to do now, and break it up amongst us and so on. But personally, myself, knock on wood, I won't run out. It's funny that what I really liked, Jace, was you talk about rabbits. It might sound odd, but technically the last animal I learnt to skin was a rabbit. I never grew up rabbit shooting, and I didn't have that kind of experience as a kid, and for whatever reason, the first animal I ever shot was a pig. It was actually quite a long time into my hunting career that I actually shot a rabbit. So, in regards to things like 22s, I owned a 30 cal before I owned a 22. And in fact, the only 22 I ever owned, I still got it. I bought it for my wife, to be honest. It's because she wanted to come out the range, so I bought a 22 for her, and it's a lovely thing. It's an old Bruno, and it's a wonderful rifle. And I'm looking forward to giving it to my boys. But that idea, I think one of the great things that public land hunting can open up to people is that if you hunt private land and that's your kind of heritage, if you don't have that, you kind of eliminated from hunting, whereas public land hunting lets people who've never hunted before have the opportunity to start. As you said, you were in your early 20s. I was in my late teens before I started firing. I had air rifles as a kid, but my first experience with rifles was at Belmont Rifle Range, and that was only because I had a driver's license that I could drive out there and do that. So that starting from, not starting from a heritage of hunting is quite an interesting learning, and I think that's what public land really opens up for people to actually get out there and put those things into practice. And as your mate said, as you were talking about your friend, it opened up a whole new approach to hunting, in that it's not about going to the farm and sitting on the back veranda or sitting in the paddock and shooting things as they go past. It's a completely different approach, and I actually think it's one of the great building blocks of what how to build that idea that hunting is actually something worth pursuing, is being put in that kind of situation and going, okay, so that's what it's really like to get a curry. That's what it takes to get a curry. I can go to Woolies or I can do that. And and in real terms, you think that curry is probably about what, $3,000 a kilo at the moment. But over time it does kind of readjust down. But it's you're starting at a fairly higher level of quality in terms of the kilo per meat. But actually learning that process or even just experiencing that process. What we're doing here at home is we're trying to eat a game meal every week now. So that's kind of a little thing we've set for ourselves. And for me, that means, get more experience at processing game meat and moving on from that. I didn't come from a background of that. So things like, experimenting with making, small goods and sausages and things like that, it's all very much a new experience, but we're certainly enjoying it. But I think if more people pursue that, especially in the hunting scene, they'd feel a lot more connected to the process.
I think for me too, what public land did for me, I like I said, majority of the doing was at night, and look, in reality, it was pest destruction really for vineyards and tomato farms and stuff, and so it was between half a dozen of us, it was not uncommon to process 150 deer a year. Like, I know, and it seems ridiculous, but before the helicopter culls really set in, sort of 5 years ago when they really started hitting it hard down at Sundown with the helicopter, there were too many there. They needed to be knocked down, to be honest. There started being vehicle accidents and stuff like that. But we did a lot of processing, and I was very fortunate that I had blokes that made their own sausages, made salamis and stuff. Very, very fortunate to have been shown how to do a lot of that stuff. But that was before I said to you that in the recent couple of years, I've gained access that I can actually hunt during the day, and I can hunt deer, and I can sort of manage it a bit, and choose not to take shots, which is great. It's nice to be on a block where you don't have to shoot every animal you see, because it does get a bit grates on you a bit after a while. If it wasn't for that public land hunting that I started, I wouldn't have known what I was doing, to be honest. I would have gone straight from spotlighting every night to hunting during the day and trying to do that. And that's what public land did for me. It actually, all that day hunting and all that practice and all that stalking I got to do, chasing goats around in Severn. And I've been down to Parkhurst and Bingara and up and around and Forest, whatever it is down south, Budleaf a bit. but yeah, that's what what public land did for me. It gave me the opportunity to practice those skills. That when I did end up lucking into some ground that I could stalk during the day, I sort of knew what I was doing, and I've had much greater success. And I would chalk it all up to public land. Otherwise, I would have been a hopeless bloody spotlighter walking around in the bushes bumping animals all day. So,
Oh, mate, still bump them now.
It's all about that 1.5 minute, though, isn't it? Like you said,
Yeah, look,
what are you going
does.
to do when that happens?
It does. As I said, I was lucky enough to get access to a block pretty close to home, and smallish block, so game movement is really important. They can literally not be on your block. And I hunted it for 3 months. I got a really good pig on it very early on, but to get a deer was proving, it was tough. I mean, it wasn't that I didn't see the deer. In fact, I always saw deer, but I always saw them on the other side of the wire. So when the opportunity came that they were on the right side of the wire and the wind was in the right direction, and that's what happened really when the seasons changed and the westerlies came in, all of a sudden that block became a much better block, because when they were easterlies, I was just in the wrong position. With the westerly, all of a sudden it was my favourite. So, I went for 3 months, I think it was about 8 or 9 visits down to, there's a deer there, and here it is. And it's a stag, and he's at 237 metres, and he's about disappeared, and so it compresses right down to those few seconds. And I actually think that's kind of that encapsulates what hunting's all about. That compression of all that activity into something that's requires you to make some pretty precise decisions that you can't reverse once you've made them. And I always find that's the most, I don't know if it's rewarding is the right term, but it's certainly the thing that most reminds me of, or I think most about when I think about the hunting, that compression of all that activity into that decision-making process.
You can see why buck fever is a thing, right?
Well, yes, right, and you can see that, and that's right, and especially if you're in a situation where you hunted once a year, you went to deer camp once a year, and there's a deer, you can see that someone's going to go, the adrenaline's going to take over.
Great. Well, I think we call that a wrap, fellas.
Oh, right.
I know we can probably get into 5 or 6 other conversations, but we might save those for a second round, Jace, if you'll come back. A couple of things I'd like to cover, but
well, I would like to ask you to come back and tell us about an Undle as a first timer. I think that's going to be interesting.
That will be good. That will be a good story.
That'll be a good one. That'll be a great one.
I'll see. I was telling. There's Ian harps on, as being in his presidential role as he is, harps on a lot of people about being safer. And it's always, this and that. And I actually took and it's because of the trip I'm going on, I actually took the plunge and bought myself a EPIRB or a rescue thing or a personal locator, what you want to call it. And it seems
a helicopter button. Yep.
Always seems like a bit of a laugh when you buy something and the intention is for you to never use it, and you think, oh, well, that's a wasted few $100. But because and by no means have people said that hanging rock and Nundle, you get stuck in there and you'll never get out. But because I'm going there and I'm going there by myself, I thought, you know what, I've got a family. I'll listen. It's only because of Ian. I'll give you props for that, Ian, for convincing me. You know what? Just bite the bullet and do it, because there's a couple $100 is cheap life insurance down there, I suppose.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very true. I've got one. I've got it's a small little yellow one. I think, Ian, you've got the same model, but yeah, it goes with me everywhere. And I actually leave it in the car, so because then I know I've got it with me. And it's in the pack.
So I think
it's not hard. I mean, like for instance, on the last weekend we were away, there's a bit of video of me on Facebook. I think I say something like, I'm not sure if it was the first or the 1000th time that I fell over when we were packing it out. It was just wet, slippery country, and boom, over I go again. A fallow deer head tied at the back of the pack. The pack's loaded up full of meat, and I keep falling over. My mate actually fell over and hurt himself. Now he was able to walk out, and he was feeling it, that's for sure, for the next week. But going from hurting yourself to not being able to get out is not too difficult in that kind of terrain. It's only a matter of degrees. So be able to get to kind of actually get that help is pretty. I can see that it'll be a silly thing to have until the day that you need it, and then it'll become the only thing that you want to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm hoping that the story isn't that exciting, but it'll be exciting nonetheless.
If it happens, make sure to take some video while you're in a helicopter. Aerial view. We might see some deer running or something. Oh, there they are.
Yeah.
And just to excite you even more, next weekend, highs of 7 and 5 and lows of -3 and -2. So you'll have a good time. You'll be fresh.
Well, look, at least my years of living in Stanthorpe hopefully will have me somewhat prepared. So
good luck with it. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, mate. That's been a really good session, and it'll be good to debrief the next one. And I'd love you to come back and talk about that fellow, but we'll leave that for another day.
Yeah.
Yep. I actually get to pick him up in a week or two. So yeah, that'll be.
Well, don't spoil it. We'll keep that one for another day because it's a ripper.
No worries.
Anyway, anything else?
Thanks. I was just going to say thanks for having me, guys, and it's been good.
It was a pleasure.
Can't wait till I'm looking forward to when the episodes are sort of public and people can get a hold of them, because I think I sort of had a bit of a jab at Ian. I sent him a message after I heard the Severn one, and I said, "Did you have to do Severn first? That's this. I have to call this the Spot Burners podcast, and there's that knee-jerk reaction of don't tell anyone that there's stuff down there." But I think it's really good what you guys are doing, and I'd never hunted the Pilliga. I've always been interested, and after listening to your Pilliga episode, it gets you going, gets the blood pumping. You think, I've got to get down there and give it a crack, and I think that's what will happen with your podcast, fellas. I think you'll get people to take that step. Blokes like my mate Joe that wouldn't take the step by himself. Maybe it'll give him that little push to go, you know what, I'm going to go down and have a look. So I think it's fantastic, and thanks again. Well,
mate, very kind words. Appreciate it. That's really nice to hear that. That's what you're getting out of it. And in regards to the Pilliga, if that's the average Joe safari, that place. That's people who know me know that place is pretty special to me. That is the safari. That you don't have to pay the 10K to go on safari. You just got to drive down there and it's safari enough,
Look at the smile on his face. You say Pilliga, he lights up like Christmas tree. All right. Well, welcome to the Spot Burners Club, Jace. Thanks for joining.
No worries. Thanks, fellas.
All right. Thanks. Good one.